We're gonna call a general government committee meeting to order. We'll say that everyone's present. For a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Actually gonna move number 14, the library, up to number 7. And then get a presentation to the rest of them. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. How about our minutes, our June 12th meeting?
Made a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Is there any public comments? Oh. Are there any supervisors not seated as committee members that have any information for this committee? All right. We'll have our outside agencies presentations. What do we got 5 of them. Is 10 minutes enough? Present? Anybody need more than 10 minutes? All right, well, and if you wanna, I don't know if we're gonna do a question and answer. Lee, are we supposed to do question and answer, or they just let them present at this time?
I think you can do question and answer briefly. I think the library should go first.
All right, so if you want questions and answers, remember that's in the 10 minutes, so. All right, we'll start with the library then.
Well, good morning. We do have some slides. Oh, there. Yay. My name is Sue Leslie, and I am the library director at the St. Croix Falls Public Library. Along with me today are other directors, the Frederick director, Amanda, Leanne from the Dresser Public Library. It has a really long name that it's not coming to me at the moment. And John Thompson is here from the IFLIS Library System. He is the director there. Okay, there it is. First off, we'd just like to thank you from all of the libraries. If you're not familiar, there are 10 libraries in Polk County: Amory, Balsam Lake, Centuria, Clear Lake, Dresser, Frederick. 11 libraries, sorry. Luck, Milltown, Osceola, Turtle Lake, and St. Croix Falls. Turtle Lake sits in between counties, so they get partial funding from Polk County. We just wanted to give you a brief overview about libraries in Polk County and the rest of Wisconsin. Each library has a board of trustees. They're appointed by the municipality. It includes representatives from outside of the municipality so that we are representing the people that we serve in our libraries. The trustees supervise the administration of the library. So the library director actually is the administrator of the library and oversees the actual happenings at the library. And who uses our library? Everyone. People in our municipality, people who live further out, people who are visiting from other places. But we are funded by our municipality and Polk County. So we were talking about, in this slide, we're talking about municipality borrowers and non-resident borrowers. 52% of our total checkouts are from non-resident borrowers. This next slide just shows in Polk County, so the municipalities are represented in that light gray, and the rest of Polk County is the darker gray. And then it just shows you the numbers that we have using the library and the total numbers. So rural residents are most of Polk County. Half, about half. So what do libraries do for the residents of Polk County? We provide educational and recreational materials to our residents. We promote and facilitate early literacy, which is so important for kids to read. We provide other Polk County services at a local level so that folks who can't get to the county building here can get some services. We provide a safe space for all that's free. You don't have to buy a cup of coffee or a beer to sit in the library and hang out with a friend or read a book or host a meeting, do some business, meet up with other friends with kids. It's a safe place for everyone to hang out. We encourage the recreation and use of Polk County trails. We also offer activities for checkout like pickleball kits, bikes, snowshoes, different things like that. And we partner with state and local trails with pass purchases and checkouts. We also do a lot of helping folks navigating technology these days. It's always changing. People always need help. There are people who don't have technology and come to the library to use the technology available at the library. We provide reliable internet connected computers. We have 24/7 Wi-Fi access, printing, copying, faxing, and scanning. And we facilitate a connection between community members of all ages. We also partner with loads of other businesses, nonprofits, clubs, departments. They're all listed in this slide. How are libraries funded? The municipal funding that I mentioned earlier, the county funding through Act 150, and then grants and donations are how we make up the difference when we are not quite funded for the needs of the library. What is Act 150? It's county funding of public libraries for the non-resident borrowers. Non-resident borrowers meaning those people that in that slide of Polk County, that gray larger chunk. And the payment amount is based upon items checked out and operating expenditures. And Act 150 is a state statute. Payments are outside the county's levy cap. This next slide is a bunch of numbers. It shows you each library's total expenditure, total circulation, the cost per circulation, and the non-resident circulation. This is the data from 2023. We are here today to just thank you for the continued funding of our libraries. The current approved county plan of services agreement was to fund libraries at 100% by 2024. Currently, we receive 90%, 95% of the funding. So we're here to ask that Polk County fund us at 100%. And why is that difference, that 5%, important? Because we're serving Polk County residents outside of their municipalities, and expenses continue to increase. Competitive living wages for our staff is important to us. We want to keep our staff at the libraries, and we want them to be able to live in Polk County. Cost of building maintenance. We have to pay for our buildings that we're in and all the maintenance required for those. The rise in those costs. And it's important that people and libraries are there for people to use so that they can be informed citizens and they can bring their children, their grandchildren to the library to read, check out books, and become informed citizens. So what would it take to get 100% funding? It would be $1.86 per non-resident borrower when you work the math. So these numbers show the first grouping is if you funded us at 100%. The second grouping is showing that currently we are funded at 95% and the difference. But when you divide that difference by the population of people who are non-resident borrowers, it's $1.86. Cost per day for a non-resident borrower. Right there, 10 cents. So we are just here to ask for your support and thank you for your previous support and continued support. And if you have any questions, that's why we're here today, to answer any questions you may have.
What is your usership doing year over year?
What do you mean by usership?
How many users did you have in 2021, 22, 23? What's happening? Is that rising or declining?
It is rising. It was, I want to say, I don't think usership has declined at all. As far as circulation, we
dropped dramatically during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID, checkouts dropped, but people with library cards did not drop. That part, people aren't like dropping out of using the libraries. They were just, like everything else, could not get into the libraries during COVID.
So what are the top 3 services the library provides that get the most utilization?
Well, at my particular library, we're busy all the time. People are always checking out books. We get between, I think our average courier delivery of books coming to our library for people to come and pick up is around 6 to 8 bins of books a day. Those get emptied and people come in and check them out. But people come in to use our technology frequently. A lot of times it's printing out taxes, printing out forms for rental agreements, those kinds of things that people need help getting off their phone, getting it printed, signing it, faxing it, or scanning it back to email so they can send it back. Those kind of things are often.
Technology and books are probably your 2 biggest.
Yep. Although our rooms are completely booked for use almost all the time. People from Girl Scouts, Kinship of Polk County uses our meeting rooms. What else? It's River Valley Hockey Association, and then there's singing groups and drumming groups and other groups and book clubs and Polk County Fair meetings. The room space at libraries who have meeting rooms are always in use. People always need a place to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions about the funding? Well, we have.
What's your budget?
Pardon?
Who sets your budget?
Who sets our budget? Our library boards.
Well, each board is different.
Correct. Yep.
The
How do you-
directors will spitball it. We'll look at our numbers and what things are costing. And we'll put something together and we put it in front of our boards, and then our boards make the ultimate decision. I did that on Monday and my boards are like, nope, we need to do this instead. Let's look at it again next month. But ultimately the board makes the decision.
How do you come up with your cost per circulation?
That is a formula that's in our statute. I'm gonna let John answer that.
The statutory formula, so it's the total expenditures, operating expenditures for the library minus any federal grant money they may have received, divided by the total circulation of physical items at the library.
Why would some be $16.68 per circulation and some would be $6.43? How can there be a $10 disparity on cost per circulation?
So when you look at the operation of a library, largest share of the operating cost would be staff costs. So there's a certain amount of staff resources needed to be open for a certain amount of time. When you look at what their traffic is, that's their circulation, that number varies widely between libraries. So that
The
may
cost
have an
can vary that widely.
Yes.
The one you're looking at, that $16 is a very tiny library. And so the proportion of staff cost to keep that library open, a minimum number of hours required by statute is proportionally very, very high.
And circulation is only one representation of what libraries do. So they also do a whole bunch of programming. So sometimes people will come to the programs and may not check stuff out. They may use the internet and things like that and not check things out. So it's a formula to hard numbers, because circulation really is the only number that libraries track where people live. So it was created to just create a baseline formula for funding. It wasn't meant to track every single transaction a library does. So a reference question, an internet use, a program attendance are not tracked for that formula. So yeah, and that circulation can vary, sometimes, if there's road construction in an area, the library is hard to get to. People don't use that library as much in one year versus another. So it does vary considerably. So it might even be weather related from year to year, but it does. And this is not any different than many of the other counties within our system area or other counties within our state. It is a very variable number.
It's a good question.
All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will have the historical side.
I wasn't sure how flash drive is going to work. I printed off copies of the presentation, just so you have them.
Thank you.
My name is Brenna Weston, and I'm the director of the Polk County Museum right here in Balsam Lake. So real briefly, just kind of an overview of what I'll be talking about today, just a mission statement, operational information from last year and this year to date so far, our website information and social media information, strategic plan implementation, and most importantly, at least to me, what we've been doing, and then kind of our ask. That's sort of how we're going to structure it. So our mission statement, it's really small in here, so I'm going to read it out. So preserving the past for future generations by collecting a unique and enduring collection of Polk County history that's shared with the public through programs, exhibits, and research. So we usually shorten that to preserving the past for future generations. So it's an 8-member board of directors, museum director, which is me, a historical society membership, and volunteers that are all kind of put together to help us continue this mission. We are responsible for managing the museum, which is just down the road here in the old courthouse. We're also responsible for managing the Lanesdale School, which is just kind of right in downtown Balsam Lake, right next to the post office. We have a signed MOU with the county every year that basically allows us to continue to manage it. And our main function is to, again, preserve Polk County's history by collecting artifacts and creating exhibits that we can then showcase to visitors that are not just from Polk County, but from all over the place. The biggest thing I want to highlight too is that admission is free for visitors, so they don't feel forced to pay to get in, although we do obviously accept donations and we we are very grateful for them. So the data from 2023, it's just a lot of graphs. So 2023, the main thing I want to highlight was 2023 and years before that, we were only open Thursdays through Sundays from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So that was a really limited window to kind of get all the visitors we wanted and, get donations, have events, everything like that. We still participated in the Ballston Lake Chamber of Commerce events. So we participated in Freedom Fest in July. We participated in the Wine Walk in September, and we participated in the Christmas Stroll in December. So we still had visitors during some of those kind of off months. But, it wasn't really continuous. And yeah, you always had those peaks in the summer, but not a whole lot after that. So our education events that we also offered kind of in that bottom left corner there. So I considered an education event anything that was, again, educational. So if I had a school tour that came through, if I had a speaker event, I started doing those between May and October of last year. So somebody would get to come in and talk about, some kind of historical interest to them specifically, but a lot of the times it was related to Polk County. And any event that I would go into the community and present. So that's kind of the average numbers. 2024, you might notice a change. So beginning in January of this year, we actually started opening year round. So now we have year round hours. We're open Wednesdays through Fridays, completely year round, and we're still open Memorial Day through Labor Day. We're open on Saturdays. Sundays were just kind of a bust. So we removed Sundays from the rotation there. Continuing education events is something that I wanted to keep going this year. I think they're really beneficial, and I think they not only benefit the museum, but they also benefit the community. So more on that later. 2023 fundraising data. So it just kind of gives you an overview of, how everything was kind of broken down in terms of monetary donations, grants that we received, membership income, like program income, sales. The one thing too that I wanted to highlight is our item donations. Those have slowed way down, mainly because if you've seen the courthouse, you see that it's 3 full stories. What you can't see is that it's filled to the brim with stuff. So our new collections management plan really limits the items that we accept to things that are very specific to Polk County's history or a person that is from Polk County. So we're not getting, somebody that, hey, I bought this dress from a vintage store. Can I donate it to you? Not so much anymore. So it allows us to actually work with the exhibits and the collections that we have instead of getting more and more and more things in. So 2024 to date, again, kind of an approximate evaluation of the items that we've received so far. I also just want to highlight some of the grants that we've applied for this year. So you can kind of see there's a number listed there. So not only, a few of those, it's few and far between, like operations grants. But most of the grants that we are applying for are grants that we want for specific projects that we're doing, like an oral history project, or like specific items that we would like for long-term use, like an overhead scanner, because if anybody's seen our archives, it's completely full of documents that we would like to digitize and actually put online for see. But you kind of have to have a really, a nice scanner to do it. Those are what, typically what we tend to apply for grants. We also apply for grants to actually help the county. So last year, one of the grants we received was to help offset the cost for the Lanesdale School siding and window redo. So we got a grant to actually pay for the windows and the door replacements while the county kind of covered the siding. So we're often trying to apply for grants that can help kind of balance the cost management between the county and us, because we understand that obviously being a historic building, it can get costly to repair or maintain even. Our website numbers, just to kind of give an idea of, how we have page views across the whole site and actual site visits. They're pretty consistent over, between last year and this year. I would say maybe there might have been a slight dip, mainly because our Facebook account is posting a lot more. I tend to post near daily content on there. So I think a lot of the times people tend to just go to social media instead of the actual website. So the one thing I do really want to highlight here, so a comparison between last year and this year in terms of our Facebook post reach, you might notice that there's a drop. There's a significant difference between a post reach from last year and this year. That's because last year, our our account basically lost access. So we, as an administrator of a Meta account, so this is for everybody's knowledge, just so you know, have multiple backups, because when you lose access and Meta decides, well, we're not really going to help you anymore, you're kind of out of luck. So after months of working, going back and forth with Meta to get them to restore our account access, we ended up just scrapping it and starting a new page from scratch, probably around September of last year. So we had a couple months where we just couldn't even get into our own Facebook page. So this is why our current Facebook followers are a little low. However, still on track to have a same or higher than post reach across Facebook itself, just based on our content posting and the fact that we tend to tag multiple places with it. So that's kind of part of our major collaboration with a lot of different organizations. So for our strategic plan implementation, it just kind of overviews some of the things that we've done basically on an administrative level, and a collections level, exhibits, things like that. The main thing is that, especially with exhibits in a museum, right? Most people tend to visit once and they say, wow, that was great. I'll never come back, right? So as a museum, you want to try and get people to come back multiple times. One of the ways to do that is to create new exhibits, or to create rotating exhibits. So that's something I've been doing over the last year, is to create multiple different kind of new exhibits that can be switched out. And that way you can get more and more people to come back. One of the other things that we tend to do when we have school tours, kids like to bring their parents back to show them all the cool things that they learned. So we're scheduling more school tours, especially in April and May, so that kids can come back once we're kind of in the summer, the big swing of summer. So that's always been fun. And the next slide here, just a little bit more, continued participation in the Chamber of Commerce events. So Freedom Fest, Wine Walk, Halloween trick-or-treating, Christmas stroll, the building preservation too, just to again note that the grants that we've applied for last year to help offset the cost of the Lanesdale School. And then we're also working on applying for grants to offset the cost of the tuck pointing for the museum building, which is hopefully coming up in the next couple years. Tuck pointing is also not cheap, that I found out. So that's another fun grant to apply for. But the biggest thing that I really want to highlight on this next slide is basically what we've been doing as a whole, right? So I'm really glad the libraries are here, because one of the main things last year that I started doing is collaborating with the libraries. So I go to at least one library a month, and I do a story time. So I read a couple stories about museums to kids that come. We do a little bit of an activity. I also do public presentations. Again, a lot of the time it's at the libraries, but I've also been to a couple different places too. The libraries are especially fun because you have kids of all different ages, and I get to do kind of a mini pioneer school for them. I also bring in a speaker. Typically, I try to do it every month as much as I can, to either come to the museum or we go to wherever it is. This year we've been to Glenna Farms already, just to kind of talk about maple syrup production. So we try to do some kind of historical topic, Polk County specifically if we can. I also started doing history how-to demonstrations. So I had somebody show people how to do flint knapping. So if anybody's really interested in flint knapping, they can kind of learn how to do it. We do school tours throughout the year, typically in the spring and in the fall. We do fundraising like root beer floats. I also started rotating exhibits through. So the picture there was one that I actually got from the Wisconsin Historical Society, and it was up for a month. And the other thing we do is we do research for visitors. So anybody that wants to know about, family history or plat information, anything like that, history of a town, if they want photos or war history, we have all of that in our archives. So we offer to do that for folks who want to learn more about their family. So that brings me to kind of my 2025 ask. So we're asking for $55,000 to support continued operations of the museum, but specifically continuing to bring Polk County's history out into the community, because I understand that not everybody can make it to a museum. Not everybody is able to physically get there. Not everybody wants to make the drive, right? I live in Osceola, so driving up here every day, not everybody wants to do that. But I want to continue to bring Polk County's history into the community. So I want to build educational boxes that can be loaned out to schools and loaned out to libraries that they can check out, hopefully. I still haven't figured that part out yet. But I also want to enhance our education collection that's within the museum. So it lets people touch things because people like to touch things a lot. I hear a bell ring just about every single time we're open because there's bells all over the place. So allowing more interactive pieces within the museum itself. But also getting storage solutions that are a little bit better than just kind of old cardboard boxes, because I want to actually preserve the items in my collections as much as humanly possible, especially our clothing items, so that they can be shared later in a different exhibit. To continue to create these rotating exhibits to increase visitors. And then to also just reconfigure some of our display cases. They're kind of a pain to get into, and they're also a really big pain to switch out when I do rotating exhibits. And the other main one is just to increase events throughout the year. So not just participating with the Balsam Lake Chamber of Commerce, but participating just on our own, creating our own events throughout the year. That's all I've got.
You anticipate visitors growing up being you were just open for the first year during the winter? Because look at your visitor numbers through January, February, March.
Yeah.
Small number. Do you anticipate that increasing?
I do. I think especially, because there's only so much you can kind of advertise, hey, we're open, year round now. So I'm hoping that once, kind of word of mouth spreads a little bit more. We do put things in the newspapers as often as we can. And obviously we share it with multiple different Facebook groups. But I think, yeah, word of mouth is a great way for things to travel. So once that kind of hits more, I think people will start to visit in the winter a little bit more. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Polk County Economic Development Corporation.
Morning, everybody. Those of you that don't know me, Terry Hauer, I'm the Executive Director for the Polk County Economic Development Corporation. And this morning, I'm just going to be going through some slides that kind of point out not only what economic development is to Polk County, but our specific focus and what we're trying to do. Obviously, this is just our mission statement, which has resonated pretty true ever since I took over as Executive Director in 2024. I'm sorry, in 2020. Try to forget that year, of course, because that was COVID. So, but we encourage and promote economic development and capital investment. So the ways that is done has changed even since I've come on board in the last 4 years. And previous to that, it was quite a bit different. But you can go to the next one, Claire. So I'm not sure why this is showing up that way. That line shouldn't be through the headline, but a little bit about our structure. I do report to an executive board, and that board is made up of 4 people: president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And then that reports into our full board, of which, and I apologize for this slide, I think I still have Ryan Wood listed there, and Jeremy is supposed to be listed. You're the new representative appointee, correct?
I think that changed again.
It changed again?
I think so.
Okay.
Karen Kelly.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get that changed when we know for sure who that is. But we really try and make our board representative of not only just a good makeup from across the county geographically, but also we want to make sure that we have the various industries that are present here in Polk County and are involved in our economic development as part of that board as well. So you'll see on our board membership there, it's fairly diverse. Next slide, Claire. So this goes into a little bit how we're funded. So we're funded, obviously, the county is generous, and we appreciate the support of our efforts to help grow and help facilitate growth within the county. But we also get support from the municipalities based on the population of those municipalities down to the village level. And each one does participate. They don't necessarily have to, but I go out to each village at least once a year and do an update for them on what's happening and how we're helping their community. And then, of course, we have private industry. And I do that. That's a once a year campaign that we do, that we go out and we actually have a fundraising campaign, more or less, that goes out and asks the local employment base to also support us. And you can see what goes into that as far as goes into our funnel, what it generates and the outcome that it generates. A little bit about the different organizations or different groups that are represented in that list there. It really represents what how economic development has evolved, because it's really more almost about quality of life and what we can provide as Polk County. Do we have good schools? Do we have things for people to do? Do we have adequate housing? Those are all part of economic development. So involved in a lot of different cross sections of different, everything from parks and recreation to transportation study groups to housing is a big one, of course. Very diverse in what we're involved in. You can go to the next one, Claire. So these are our three, and again, I apologize, something's weird in how it's pulling these up, but I think you can read it. Our three priorities are workforce. Even though it's not as serious as it was during the pandemic and post-pandemic, workforce is still an issue. And to be able to attract workforce, you need housing. And that is an issue not only that's affecting Polk County, it's affecting our region, it's affecting the country. And it's adequate housing for that workforce that we're trying to attract to the area. And then childcare is a big need too. The one thing I'm really happy to report is that we're making progress in all these areas in Polk County, which is great. And the next couple slides kind of get into that. So we have a bunch of new businesses, and new business is anyone that started within the last 2 years. We count as a new business. So you'll see we have Sweet Additions in Dresser, Equus Magnificus in St. Croix Falls. We have multiple Quick Trips starting up, and it used to be that if you got a Walmart, that was a big deal. But now if you get more Quick Trips, it seems to be some indicator of how successful you are. Precision Stainless and Dresser is new, and then there's some great downtown retail that has joined in various communities, particularly here in Balsam Lake. There's some great progress being made in the downtown revitalization of certain areas. Business expansions, that is not an exhaustive list. That's actually just a small list. Many businesses are expanding, and some examples of that is Oxbow. Oxbow was actually, I called together a special group, including our regional director and the utility companies and a bunch of other agencies, including the educational people that lead our educational institutions. Oxbow was actually thinking of leaving, and they were going to potentially move from Clear Lake. We were positioned against New York, and we actually had to kind of pitch that here's why you need to stay in Polk County. And we were successful in that. So not only are they staying, but you will probably see some expansion happening within the next year there. So those are the types of things where we get involved directly with certain opportunities that we know of where we can really make an impactful difference. And thankfully for Oxbow, they decided to stick around. Noble X, Rock Shield Rubber, brand new facility that they're building in Milltown. If you've been through there, there's a new 20-acre development that is, they're building a 50,000 square foot new production facility. And that is going to allow for not only Rock Shield Rubber to expand, but for Schaefer Manufacturing to expand as well, kind of a trickle down effect, because Schaefer will take over the current Rock Shield building. So you can go to the next slide there. Some great new opportunities for us and things that affect economically the county for us is the St. Croix Health Campus. St. Croix Health has purchased the land next to Menards, which would be right there in the upper left-hand corner. It's a 100-acre campus. They're only going to be using about 40 of it for their direct campus needs for when they start the new healthcare campus. So I've been working closely with them. Numerous developers had contacted me regarding what's going to happen with all that space around, which can be retail, it can be housing, it can be a mixed use facility. That's going to be a development that within the next year or two is going to have a pretty significant impact here in Polk County. Having really good healthcare providers is super important economically, and we're very fortunate in Polk County to have St. Croix Health, Osceola Medical Center, and Amory hospitals and clinics, all right here in Polk County. 3 major medical providers for a smaller rural community like we are is very important, and our employers all appreciate that, and we sure appreciate that as economic development too. So you can go to the next one, Claire. St. Croix Golf Course, what used to be the St. Croix Golf Course is up for sale, of course, and I don't have an update as far as exactly what's happening there. But that's another 100-acre site. I know that there's been some interest from some retail partners there and stuff, but I don't have anything new to report on any actual things that might happen there. But I'm working with the developers there to make sure that we're able to help and that they're aware of the resources that we have that can help them should someone show interest in that. You can go to the next one again, Claire. Housing developments, this is just kind of a snapshot of some recent things that have happened. The Tiny Timbers community in St. Croix Falls is a very unique thing to Polk County. We've had people from all over the state that have actually come in and toured this Tiny Timbers community. It's a tiny homes concept, which isn't for everybody. And it's definitely not a solution to the housing problem, but it's just another potential not solution, but I guess it's an add-on that can add some relief to our housing situations. And people are very interested in those types of solutions. They've come from all over the state to tour the Tiny Timbers. And the unique thing there is that you can get density. So, you can get a lot of people in a little amount of space, which is the same thing for apartment complexes and things like that. And those are good things to consider for Polk County as we try and look for future development. In St. Croix Falls, they have the new Impact 7 project, which is down kind of by the lower industrial park there. There's an Impact 7 project going in there, and that's 40 units. And then in the Village of Luck, working with them on 19 acres next to the school that is going to hopefully turn into some housing in the not too distant future. Main thing with all these housing opportunities is infrastructure and cost. That's where things always tend to get more difficult, is when you look at what is it going to cost to put in the infrastructure to support this development. So that's always a big hurdle. Next slide. The Osceola Bluffs apartment complex, which has been somewhat controversial. It's right now it's all good to go, other than it's being held up in a judge's. There's a legal procedure that's taking place that is holding it up at this point. But assuming that that's going to go well, and I think it is from last I heard, they will be able to start that, and that'll be the largest construction project in Polk County, as far as I know, probably ever. That'll come, and that's a huge boost to not only Osceola but to our community and really to the St. Croix River Valley, where they're planning on building that. It's going to be a great addition, and put a lot of time and effort into trying to educate people on what this means. That the housing is critically important to not only for Osceola but really for the overall communities in the areas that it supports. So a focus has been more on the deliverables. So we do a bi-monthly newsletter that comes out every other month. We do our economics dashboard that comes out twice a year. And that's just kind of an economic state of the union, if you will. It's just a 2-page flyer that goes out to a lot of the senior leadership in our county. It goes to all the board members. And it really just paints a picture on key economic indicators, how we're doing in relationship to how others are doing. Of course, we have the Regional Business Fund, and we also do a lot of events. We just got done here a few months ago hosting 3 different housing events that were very successful. In fact, we only had 2 scheduled, and they were so popular, and there was enough demand that we actually did a 3rd in Luck just a little over a month ago. So a lot of coordination with other agencies. The EDC in and of itself doesn't have a ton of resources that are financially, like programs or grants or things that we have, but we're the conduit or the funnel to those types of resources. And that's where our key value comes in. Next one, Claire. Of course, we do the awards breakfast every year. This was last October. And you can see Business of the Year, New Business of the Year, Service Award, and then Agricultural Excellence. Agriculture is still a very important contributor economically to Polk County, and we want to make sure that gets honored. So agriculture also has its own category and will again this year. Next slide. These are just samples of some deliverables, shows you what the dashboard looks like in an in focus. If you're not getting it and you'd like to get it, just go to the website and sign up or let me know. The next one, Claire. One of our larger initiatives to track talent into the area is our Prosper in Polk website. And you can see this is kind of just what the website looks like and what some of the social media posts look like. We've had 3 different campaigns that have tried to help support this. And with those campaigns, we've had over 3 million impressions. So those are people that have actually seen something about Polk County, a little video or a clip. We have those out there. They're just a few seconds long, but it at least engages them to say, oh, wow, I didn't know all this was available in Polk County. Of those, we've had 350 people actually submit a registration or send us an email saying, hey, I'm interested in the opportunities that Polk County has to offer. And then I share that with our local employers so that they know that, hey, there are people that are interested in their jobs. Right from this website, they can also link through to the companies that are supporting this website, and they can actually find out specifically what those jobs are. So this has been a very good tool for us. Next one, Claire. Yeah, thanks. So 2025 for the EDC, we're going to do a lot of what has been working well for us because right now, you know, the economy is in a little bit of a slowdown, and a lot of our local employers are experiencing that. And so that the 3 things that we're focused on, we don't intend to change. It's still about getting quality workforce into our area. And the only way to do that is to have quality childcare and quality housing that they're able to live in while they also want to work in Polk County. So our initiatives for that year, our ask for the year is the same as we've been funded to the same degree as the previous 2 years. So that's kind of the Polk County EDC. Any questions for me? I will say one area to watch in particular is that Highway 35 corridor. There's a bunch of things that are fairly large in scale and are looking really good at the outset. I can't divulge anything about specifics on them yet, but there's some really big things happening along that Highway 35 corridor. Since the beginning of the year, I've gotten more calls than I would normally get, I guess, on Minnesota companies that are interested in that Highway 35 corridor. And I'm always trying to shove them a little further into the county, but if they're interested, they're interested. And that Highway 35 corridor is going to be something that is going to, I think, generate some really good opportunities for Polk County in the upcoming years. Yes.
Jerry, you want to mention since you mentioned childcare, the groundbreaking coming this month in Milltown?
Yeah, so Schaefer Manufacturing is, you know, Schaefer's one of our larger employers in the county. And they have Schaefer Manufacturing as a corporation is actually building their own daycare center. So there's a groundbreaking, I forget what the date is.
17th.
August 19th, something like that. But anyhow, there's a groundbreaking ceremony. That's huge because employers have been talking about that for, you know, the past 3 years to say, hey, something needs to happen with childcare. Schaefer's actually kind of taken and said, all right, we're going to do something. And they're opening up a place called The Grove. And I've worked with Steve Schaefer there for a couple of years now. And him and I did a tour of the county, saw some other childcare facilities. And they're actually going to be breaking ground here in August for that new daycare center. Hope to be open and ready to go by the first of the year, I think is their plan. So that's a big move in childcare for us, even though it's just one employer in a local area. Again, that just kind of shows, because not a lot of employers are stepping up to do that. That just shows the example that Polk County leads the way. And I think that'll inspire others to follow. And I know in the Osceola Industrial Park, there's a movement to try and get all the employers to work together to maybe have their own daycare center as well. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to facilitate and that we get quite heavily involved with.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Kinship. So,
Well, good morning. My name is Lisa Thanig, and I am the Director for Kinship of Polk County. So for those of you not familiar with the program, we serve our youth in the county in 2 ways. We have a school mentoring program where we match high school students with elementary and middle school students. They meet once per week during the school year. And then we also have a community-based program where we match adults with youth who need additional support and guidance. Our mission is to work to improve the quality of a child's life by establishing a relationship with a caring volunteer for the purpose of promoting stability, support, friendship, and community. We serve youth ages 5 through 18 throughout Polk County. 70% of our community-based youth served live in single-parent homes or with someone other than a parent. They most likely have experienced some sort of trauma. Their parents might be struggling with addiction. They may be incarcerated or have mental health struggles. They may be in poverty or be on welfare dependence. There's often a low level of education in the home. And then our youth are at risk of delinquency, substance abuse, mental health barriers, including anxiety and depression. Those are really the two biggest we're seeing right now. Suicide risk, teen pregnancy, and then dropping out of school. So we partner with all of the school districts in Polk County, and that really allows us to reach more youth throughout the county, which is great. Prevention work and the benefits of intervening early to mitigate barriers caused by trauma and stress is really critical to youth success. And youth who are part of a social network just beyond their family are less likely to internalize stress. They have reduced feelings of loneliness, depression, and anxiety, and have an overall better well-being. Our mentors really support and nurture healthy development. They encourage positive life choices. They build self-confidence, and they introduce youth to new life experiences. I think the longevity of our staff really says a lot about our program. We just all really believe in what we're doing. I have been with Kinship since 2010, so 14 years. Carolee Tollickson is our program manager, and she serves the Osceola, St. Croix Falls, and Unity areas. She's been with Kinship for 24 years. Amy Danielson serves our Clear Lake, Clayton, and Amory area, and she has been with Kinship for 23 years. And then Shara Anderson is our newest employee. She's been with Kinship since 2021, and she serves the northern part, Luck and Frederick. So we just really, we all have kids who are in these school districts or growing up alongside the youth that we are serving. So we really see the need and we see the impact that we are making. So why does mentoring matter? Mentored youth are 55% more likely to be enrolled in college than those who do not have a mentor. Students who meet regularly with their mentors are 52% less likely than their peers to skip a day of school. Mentored youth are 46% less likely than their peers to start using drugs and 27% less likely to start drinking. Mentored youth are 81% more likely to report participating regularly in sports or a club or another after school or outside of school activity. Mentored youth are more than twice as likely to say that they held a leadership position in that club or the sport that they're participating in. And youth.gov supports mentoring, stating youth who are mentored have lower school dropout rates, they have healthier relationships and lifestyle choices, higher education aspirations, stronger relationships with their parents, with their peers, with their teachers, and they have improved interpersonal skills. Mentored youth are also 78% more likely to volunteer regularly in our communities when they grow into an adult, and we know how important volunteering is. And the most conservative study of mentoring estimates a 3-to-1 return on investment. So what does your funding provide? With your help, you've graciously funded us for since our inception in 1980, actually. We have been able to serve over 300 youth each year. Last year in 2023, we served 369 youth between our school and our community-based program. You really help us with our partnerships in all 8 of the school districts. Over the last 5 years, our mentors have volunteered 39,960 hours to mentoring. That's pretty amazing. Just last year alone, we had 8,838 hours to mentoring. We host 10 or more group activities each year, and these group activities we actually have one coming up this Thursday. We're doing the Amazing Race, and we're doing it in the St. Croix Falls community. Last year we did it in Amory. We're hoping to kind of move around to different communities so that we can get more involvement from all over Polk County. We've also done Wild Mountain. We've gone to the Children's Theater. We go bowling, we go swimming. We do all sorts of just different group activities where we can bring all of our matches together. It's really, really great when we see some of the kids in our program becoming friends with other kids in our program, and our mentors get to know each other, and then they can have kind of a support network as they're mentoring their kids as well. We do provide small mentor group gatherings in each of our areas so that mentors can get together, talk about their successes, talk about some of the barriers or issues that they're facing, and then we come to solutions with that. We also do a formal mentor training each year that's usually geared around a mental health focus, maybe anxiety, depression. We've done autism. There's a shortage of mental health professionals, and Polk County really helps to fill that gap by providing funding to support trauma-informed mentor training. And then this mental health education helps our mentors guide our youth through just everyday struggles like sibling conflict or getting bullied on the bus, their perceptions of self-worth. And all of this really increases resiliency, leading to, more positive outcomes. According to Mentor, the average cost per youth served across programs is $1,695 per year. For kinship, at this time, our average cost per youth is $1,200 in community-based mentoring, and that's to support, to match, to maintain, and to support a match for an entire year in our community-based program. And then according to Mentor, more than 80% of the adults support government investment in mentoring, and more than 2/3 are already mentoring or willing to consider it. Approximately 16% of our funding comes right here from Polk County, from you guys. So we're just really, really grateful for that support. You really allow us to focus more on our program services, and it takes then less time for us to focus our energy on fundraising, which is lovely. The less that I have to fundraise, the more that I can be involved in the program work, and that's really where I want to be. I think it's just really important that we all combine our resources, across our sectors, our agencies, and our family-centered organizations. It's really critical to improving the quality in the communities that we live in. Many of the youth stay right here in the county when they grow into adults, so it's just really important that we're investing in them. And then the demand for our mentoring program remains high. When COVID hit, we kind of had a lapse. We were able to maintain all of our matches, which was wonderful. It was a really tough year for us, and then even in 2021, that was a really tough year. But now we've been receiving a ton of youth referrals, and our waiting list sits on average around 17 youth. So we're busy trying to recruit and find mentors to match with these kiddos. And then we all know that our youth are really experiencing increased mental health barriers, anxiety, depression, social isolation. Those are really, really big things that we're seeing in our youth. We all know the cost of living has gone up and inflation has gone up. So those expenses have also increased for businesses. Our printing, our supplies, mileage, postage, rent, employee retention, keeping up with what everyone else is doing in the county and keeping our employees is a big deal. We're just really grateful for your support. We're asking again for the same amount that we asked for last year, $40,000. And that will help just, like I said in the information that I provided earlier, just in recruiting our mentors and being able to support our youth through all of our group activities, to offer trainings to our mentors so they're well prepared to serve the youth that they are matched with. And then just to end, I just always like to share some of the stories. All of you know Shabana. She was mentored in our program when she was a youth, and I just look at her now. It's amazing. We had quite a few youth graduate this year. One of our matches, Diana and Caitlin, they were matched a long time ago. Caitlin just graduated this year, but when she was first matched with Diana, she was very anxiety ridden and she would barely leave the house. She was very, very socially isolated and Their relationship really grew and it's been really fun to watch. She's come into herself and turned into this really confident woman. In fact, she spoke at our Luau fundraiser 2 years ago, and that's in front of over 200 people. So that's a huge deal from her not wanting to step out of her own house to, speaking in front of over 200 people. Their match, when youth graduate or turn 18, we close our matches, but Caitlin and Diana continue to meet. They meet every Tuesday and they really have no intention of stopping. So I think that is great. And then just another quick story, Kaylee and Avery. Kaylee is the mentor and Avery just also graduated. She's graduating with honors actually and heading to Hamline University to pursue a degree in criminal justice. I think that's really, really great. I'm not sure that Avery would have left home without Kaylee's guidance. Kaylee really encouraged job shadowing. She regularly pushed Kaylee to think, she really regularly pushed Avery to really think about her future and how to pursue her goals. She was really instrumental, I think, in opening Avery's eyes to a bigger world and to what really she can do outside of her little community of Osceola. So just thought that I would like to share those. Does anyone have any questions?
Good.
Okay, good. See you at the well.
Bus cap.
Good morning, everyone. Did you get my slides?
We did receive it. I wasn't able to open it. It said that it was being protected on your end.
Okay, I resent it again. I fixed.
Do you have it on your laptop?
I do.
Do you have an HDMI port on your laptop?
I do.
We can connect it to the
Okay.
podium if we can have a second.
Oh, there's the podium.
Connection.
I'll just start talking while he's finding the cord. So my name's Samantha Phillips. I'm the Associate Director for Social Development for West Cap. I probably have, or maybe you have to do things. So I headed over here from Glenwood City this morning. So our office, people sometimes ask why Glenwood. I grew up in Glenwood, so I think it's a lovely community. I'm raising my children there still today. We've been in downtown Glenwood since 1972. Some of our windows prove that, but it's kind of the central location for us. So we're serving 7 counties in west central Wisconsin. We like our pictures, and the slides were too large to send, so I sent it as a link, and then you have to have permissions, and it's a whole thing. So,
See it in our email either.
I do it like this, like connect it from here.
Should just
Oh, kind of thought it would just wake up.
project.
Source. So our mission is to take action against poverty by developing the social and economic assets of low-income families and their communities, and by working to create a more just and sustainable society. So we're a community action agency. That's what CAP stands for. We are one of 1,000 across the nation. We were created in the 60s in the war on poverty, really to address, in a nation of such wealth, why are there children that can't eat every day? Why are there kids without a bed or a warm place to sleep at night? We're too wealthy of a country to allow that to happen. So community action was formed really to get kind of boots on the ground at the local level to get federal dollars right inside local communities and give them the ability to put those dollars towards their needs, how they see them in their communities. So community action looks different. Even just, you know, Eau Claire's community action to our community action looks different. The programs are different. They're really catered to meet local needs. We have a 21-member board of directors. So that means that there are 3 members from each county serving on our board. It's representation from county government, representation from the community, and then a low-income member as well. So we like to share that 1/3 of our board is low income themselves. So we're not just, we think this will help low income people. We're actually getting input from low income people on our board of directors. So what are we doing? We relieve the hardships of poverty, support personal and family development, and promote economic opportunity. And I like to tell, just share a slide about the need. So we talk about housing, it's a big deal. It's really kind of that loud need that we're hearing in our agency. So we put a lot of time and effort into affordable housing, and affordable means households are paying 30% or less of their monthly income on rent and utilities. Anything over that, and it's just really a tight budget and you don't have enough for childcare, medical bills, food, everything else, transportation. So a statistic I found from an out of reach report from the National Low Income Housing Coalition says that Polk County, Wisconsin, a 2-bedroom housing wage would be $18.50 an hour. So that's the bare minimum they would need to be able to afford a 2-bedroom in Polk County, which right now fair market rent is $962 a month, or $38,480 annual income to afford a 2-bedroom in Polk County. Meanwhile, the estimated average hourly wage for Polk County renters is $12.35 an hour. So $12.35 to $18.50, it's just not enough. The point of that article was it's out of reach. Housing is out of reach. You can't say just get a job. They have jobs. There's a lot of jobs out there that aren't paying a living wage. A lot of our customer service jobs, receptionists, retail, home health, all those important jobs that are fueling our economies and running our communities. It's just, there's this imbalance in what it costs to live. So WestCap is here to help. We're providing food access, weatherization services, energy assistance. I'm just still talking, assuming it's not there. Okay. Housing assistance, development, adult education, and transportation. Those are kind of the big buckets. We're serving 7 counties in west central Wisconsin: Barron, Chippewa, Dunn, Pepin, Pierce, Pope, and St. Croix. And we do some in Burnett and Washburn as well. Fiscal year 23, we served 2,319 households in Polk County. That comes to 4,742 individuals. And I get into our programs a little bit more and I can talk about kind of where the big ones are. So first up is adult education. It's a small program. It's a one-woman show, but she serves all 7 counties with different programs that help adults improve their capacity to earn, improve their quality of life, improve their wages. So it includes adult literacy, which is free one-on-one tutoring with adult learners, a lot of English language skills, reading and communication. So we're pretty proud of this program. We had 11 individuals served in Polk County through adult literacy. Again, it's a small program. She serves 3 counties with literacy, and we have tutors who meet in public libraries, who meet in coffee shops, and just provide one-on-one tutoring to help people meet their personal goals related to reading and writing skills. We also run a skills enhancement program that pays for tuition, books, and mileage for short-term training courses to help low-wage workers earn higher wages. Newly added was a nursing skills enhancement program to help meet the healthcare shortage here in Wisconsin. So like our general skills, but directed at people trying to earn a CNA, LPN, medical assistant, those kind of degrees, trying to incentivize people and provide some funding to help boost that career path. In food access, so we've got a facility in Boyceville. We run a pantry there Thursday evenings, 1 to 7 p.m. Serves Boyceville School District communities and Glenwood City School District communities. But that's not all. It's actually kind of a distribution center as well. So we have 2 pretty big federally funded programs that run out of there. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program. So a big semi truck comes once a month and drops off USDA foods. And we have 12 to 15 volunteers that come and they fill over 700 boxes of food with supplemental food. And then that gets distributed out across 7 counties to senior citizens. So you have to be 60 and over income eligible. So we had 207 commodity supplemental food recipients from Polk County last year. We also we're kind of a grant administrator. So the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, we partner with 39 area food outlets across our service territory. So really we see our role as being able to accept large, clunky, kind of somewhat more difficult federal grants, and then be the administrator and the reporter and the kind of compliance person, but then getting those resources and the benefits out to all these small pantries across our service territory. So our interaction with the TFAP program served 1,781 Polk County individuals last year with food access. And the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, really cool program. It provides a $45 voucher to low-income seniors to purchase fresh food at farmers markets and roadside stands for Polk County. These are distributed through the ADRC, and we had 54 individuals benefit from this program from Polk County last year. Housing assistance. Right now we have a new housing stability program that's running through 2025. So we're able to provide coaching, budgeting, supportive services to households who call and just are struggling to maintain their housing. We also offer WIDA Section 8 vouchers to help families with very low to extremely low income. So this is a rent subsidy program. So again, the idea is that households are only required to pay 30% of their income in order for their housing to be affordable and for them to live and afford the rest of their needs. So we had 86 Polk County individuals benefit from a housing voucher last year. And homeless intervention, really big department, based in Menominee, serves all 7 counties. We have 6 full-time case managers, 4 other full-time staff, all running the homeless intervention. I know case managers are driving up to Milltown, driving up to St. Croix Falls, and doing in-home case management, keeping people in their homes, helping them get budgeting, helping connect them to local resources. And we had 21 individuals served in homeless intervention in Polk County last year. Housing development, we've got, I think it's 300 and some active units right now that WestCap manages through our property management side. I'm social development side, so I'm like the people programs, and then there's a whole other side that's like property kind of things. But in Polk, we've got Cap Townhomes in Clayton. It's 8 3-bedroom units. That served 29 individuals last year. And we've got St. Croix Falls Townhomes that served 69 individuals last year. So we are a certified community housing development organization. So that means we can work with private businesses and developers, and we can renovate and, really push for the acquisition and development of affordable housing across our area. We strive for a green approach by using things like air source heat pumps, solar panels. We just put in air source heat pumps at Captown. That was really exciting. We got a WIDA grant to install some higher efficiency energy systems. And really we see that as a cost savings to the tenants for the long term and benefit to the planet. Energy assistance, big program. I think this jumped by like 1,000 people served from 22 Polk County to 23. Last year's number 1,646. So this is a one-time payment towards utility bills. Runs October 1st through May 15th. It's a one-time payment. It depends on the household size, their income, their energy costs. It's paid directly to the energy supplier. It includes a 24-hour no heat emergency line. So we have literally a stock of space heaters and someone's on call. And if someone calls and their heat is out and no one can get to them, we've got someone that can run out space heaters and help get furnace repair or whatever it is to get their heat back on. And households that get energy assistance are then eligible for weatherization. Another huge department for West Cap is weatherization. We've got trucks all over the place, driving all over, crews putting energy efficiency measures into homes, making them more energy efficient, reducing utility bills. We've also included, I think there's a water heater program now, and they've added air conditioning, which was not something that was covered under this previously. So that's exciting. And then last is transportation. So I did not see any Jumpstart recipients from Polk in the system from last year, but the program's kind of changed over time. We had a dealership at one time. But right now, our transportation program includes a down payments program, low interest loan partnership through Wisconsin. So we've, helped maybe 10 to 15 people per year with up to $2,000 towards the purchase of a late model reliable vehicle, including some maintenance and repair options. So sorry that was fast, but I wanted to punch through all of our programs in 8 minutes. So our ask is the same as in the past. It's fairly small compared to our budget, but I feel like it helps build that local connection. And I think it's important to have local dollars bringing that support to the community and helping us stay connected so we can better serve our communities. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry that my slides didn't work, but.
Good.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll bring us to our GAM audit report.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Sherwood. I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. So for the next two agenda items, I'm actually going to be referring to the audit summary that was provided for you. So it's going to be combining both the operation GAM as well as just the general county financials as well. Since GAM is basically brought in and part of the governmental or the full county financial statements as well. My personal secretary over there distribute those for me. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Again, just to get things started, I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. I've been involved in various forms with the various county audits here for a number of years. So I've got a historical background as well. So if there's anything that I can help provide to you, please let me know. Otherwise, Sherry's in the back as well. We've got Bill over there as well for us to help us out, or Dana over there as well to help us out with maybe additional information that I don't have right at my fingertips. Otherwise, I have my computer back there as well. We can refer to those after my presentation and I can get back to you with any questions that might pop up. Do want to recognize just all the various department heads that we have to work with in pulling together the audit, as well as just various county employees that maybe not their day-to-day function isn't finance. So you're speaking with CPAs and whatnot and helping work through some of the issues that we have to dig into. It's very challenging at times just to speak the same language. So we very much appreciate all the county input and just getting back to us on a timely basis, which makes our job a lot easier, and as well as be able to pull in all the various information we need to in order to meet our statutory deadlines. So very much appreciate that overall. The rest of my colleagues that are also in charge of working with the various department heads. Working remotely has been a big benefit for us as well, working electronically. So we can have various reports and whatnot uploaded to our secure portal. We can pull them down. It eliminates some unnecessary travel when maybe we just need to view a report and pull off one number off a report and then do some analysis on that. So it's a huge benefit. So again, just not enough gratitude can go towards just the complementary workforce between our two organizations. So. And again, this is a summary of all of the financial data of the county. I'll spare you the full 101-page presentation for you this morning. But obviously the full financial statements in draft form are currently out there. Finance has received them and reviewed them. At this point, we're basically going through some, I'll call them clerical differences as far as making sure that we get the formatting correct and some verbiage that needs to be possibly changed throughout the report. But in terms of the numbers, I feel that our numbers at this point are obviously materially correct. So they're, they may change slightly here or there for a minor adjustment, but I don't see anything that, if you're going to be being able to make decisions based on these numbers, I don't think a decision would be swayed one way or another due to any potential minor changes here in our final overall wrap-up stage. So that's why I have the whole summary here is marked as a draft, because there is a chance that maybe some of the verbiage and whatnot may change. So just to kind of dive into kind of what we actually do as far as the overall audit for you as well. We're doing more than just coming in here, taking your numbers and making your financial statements. We do a lot of various testing throughout, some evaluation of internal controls for how the county is operating. And then if there's any specific items that come to the level of, hey, we need to let the board know or committees know that their special attention needs to be paid to these items. Professional standards require us to when we're making these presentations, to bring them up. So there are two items that we actually report as material weaknesses, is kind of the technical term for you. One of which is segregation of duties, and the other is through the course of our auditing, we propose auditing adjustments that are material based on the information we received preliminarily. We make adjustments to them that, again, would make, if those adjustments had not been made, they would impact decision-making or possibly some opinions from an outside organization looking at your financial statements. Those two items are, repeat findings or repeat items from prior years. Definitely not a red flag by any means, but just something that you need to be aware of at the board level. The first being segregation of duties. Obviously, if you look at your organization in total, every single department, every different program that's being run, certain programs, there's only one individual or one key member of your team that is responsible for all the financial data and the operations of those programs. So because you have just a limited segregation of duties in one specific role throughout the entire transaction cycle of the county, that raises up the level of just letting you know that there needs to be some compensating controls within the organization, additional levels of review, additional attention for those reports. So when you're seeing things, it's definitely, worth, even at the county board level, to be asking questions for clarity, just so that everybody involved is in the understanding of exactly the activity that's flowing through there, making sure that the proper revenues are going into those programs, are being offset by the proper and authorized expenditures. So you'd be even surprised at some of the, the largest counties that you can get into, or the larger organizations. County board members just assume and take for granted the fact that their finance team is the one that's reviewing everything. But when you get down into those granular levels, sometimes those key people, there's only one or two people there. So we need to make sure that we have the proper checks and balances and the proper authorization over that. So again, just bringing that up there for everybody, just to keep in the back of your mind, because if anybody has seen any fraudulent news out there in local media, governments are not immune to those fraudulent activity or embezzlements and whatnot. So there's been a few cases in the greater area of Western Wisconsin, just to pay attention to. So thankfully there isn't any, again, red flags as a response to that. But again, just to keep that in the back of everybody's mind, compensating controls are very important. And then again, the material audit adjustments one, that's just, again, we're finding specific items that we would need to include in the financial statements in order to then properly disclose them in the full GAAP accounting or the approved form and function of your financial statements. The total number of adjustments this year is about the same as they were last year. we've had to add on a few technical journal entries this year just to some implementation of some new accounting standards that I'll highlight throughout our report here. I'll notice some additional changes there. So overall, I think that we're still trending towards, improving overall. There's a lot of the typical year-to-year ones, which the county has now taken over, the finance team has taken over to ensure that all those balances are properly adjusted. So we've eliminated some on that end, but then due to our lovely accounting changes, gotta love those. They've been a little bit more technical right now, the first couple of years after implementation. So we're still kind of assisting the county with them, and we'll be hoping to eliminate those, taking them off of our plate. The county can then obviously post all of those, and we'll be hoping to eliminate that finding or that notation in your audit report going forward. Some of the other things that we actually assist with the county as well. I can go back to my correct page here, apologize. Besides compiling the financial statements, we also assist with compiling the highway annual report, that closing report, that's a report down to the Department of Transportation. And then we also assist with some department or Wisconsin Department of Revenue filings, which is known as the Form A or the Tax 16 report. It's actually two separate filings on that one early on in the season here. And then there's the audited version, which is coming up. That deadline is July 31st. So we'll be making sure that we meet that deadline as well. That's a very important one because that obviously bases a lot of state funding. Down at Madison takes all those numbers, the cumulative numbers there, and then helps disperse state share of revenues, and transportation aids is one of the biggest ones out of that one as well. And then in terms of the federal government, because of course we have to make everybody happy there as far as who is distributing out grant funds to the county. So the federal funding that comes through the county needs to have its own special set of rules and regulations as far as compliance goes. So if we get a federal grant, we need to make sure that we're following the terms and the stipulations of each individual grant. So we have to do a special reporting up to the federal government known as a single audit. And we do that specific reporting and all of that testing as well. We're hoping this year that we can actually issue that compliance report at the exact same time as your audit report. But that one technically is due in September. So we'll make sure all of those filings are taken care of at that time as well. But overall, again, backing up to your financial statements in total, there's of your 101 page report, there's only about 3 or 4 pages which are technically CLAs or technically mine at that. I'll refer to it that way. And that's our audit opinion or audit letter. And in your audit opinion, that's basically the outside assurance of saying, what is our opinion of your financial statements, of the amounts and the disclosures within? And we strive to achieve what's known as an unmodified or a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that an outside agency can grant over your financial statements. And we're going to be happy to say that we're going to be able to meet that objective this year again. It's kind of our goal every year is to say everything that's in your financial statements is correct, and it can be relied upon. So again, that's the highest level of assurance. It's effectively known as a clean opinion. Within your audit opinion, there is going to be what's known as an emphasis of matter, which just is again a highlight to let you know that due to accounting changes or the implementation of a new accounting policy, it's known as GASB 96. I can bore you to death with it if you'd like, but I'll pass on that for you. Essentially, all it means is that there's specific accounting transactions, and this year they have to do with subscription-based information technology agreements. So anything that's subscription-based, you're paying a user fee for, or a 3-year term on these specific agreements with whatever company is providing it to you. In the past, we've only recognized 1 year of expense of when you pay for it, but now GASB is telling us that we need to report those as more of a long-term debt situation. So we're going to be picking up the entire amount as a liability on your books, and then we're essentially going to be paying that off over the life of the agreement. So it's going to change some of the reporting and some of the notes a little bit. But again, effectively for any budgetary conversation, that has absolutely no impact on that. It's strictly to make sure that we are in line with government accounting standards. So it does take a lot of effort to make sure that we're staying in compliance with those, a lot of additional lifting from your finance department, some analysis of reading some of these agreements to see, does it qualify, does it not? We cross our fingers a lot of times in hopes that we can get out of them and find the loophole that allows us just to treat them as we normally have, but we need to document all of that and make sure that it's all appropriate. So long-winded speech there a little bit, but just so you know, you will see some numbers in the back here when we get to long-term debt that will now pop up on your schedule that were never there before. It's not due to anything changing out there. We just found of all the agreements that we had to analyze, we found 4 agreements that were actually applicable and had to run our calculations and actually include those in your statements. So all that being said, I can dive into some actual numbers here for you now on page 2 of my audit summary. And again, I'm going to try to keep my comments high level in terms of specific numbers, but I'll hopefully be able to give you the trend analysis here of things to look out for if there's any concerns that might pop up for you. So item number 1 here in terms of actual numbers is the general fund. So again, within the county government, we have a number of funds. I think you're up to like 53 different funds here of specific activity that's set aside and tracked for a specific reason. The general fund is essentially everything else that's going on top of there that's not required to be reported elsewhere. It all gets rolled into the general operations of the county. So here, this is just a 4-year trend analysis of just a snapshot in time of your balance sheet. Those are your balances as of 12/31 of each of these respective years. So if there's a significant change from one year to the next, it's just a good exercise at that point or analysis of saying what changed and why. And if something kind of stayed the same, it's like, okay, well, that's just meaning it's more or less status quo or kind of in line with your general operations from year to year. So if anything really jumps off the page there, it is usually explainable. Or there's, inactivity, maybe it's timing from one year to the next, that really does change. So really the more important items to really to do an analysis of where is the financial health or the fiscal health of the county, we have 3 shaded rows there that really show exactly financial measures that can help you say, where are we doing as a county? So underneath the fund balance topic there, about halfway down the page, there's a number of different categories that we use, and your fund balance is like your equity or your reserves that are going to be used to meet future obligations going forward. And you're actually using all of the different various functions that we can title them. So there's a non-spendable category of your fund balance. So that's essentially resources that you have on hand that are going to be restricted and cannot be used because of either something needs to happen in order for them to become available to you. So like non-spendable items for like delinquent taxes, for instance, they're resources, they're assets of the county, they're delinquent receivables for you, but obviously they're not available to you until they're collected and then made available for you. And then you move down to other items like restricted items, meaning that the granting agencies typically that's the biggest piece there. There's a state agency that granted a department some grant funds, and those are excess funds that they have not yet met the obligations for, have not yet spent down. So there's a restriction from an outside agency saying, we're going to give you these funds. These are resources to the county, but thou shalt use them for XYZ purpose. And then those are usually tracked within a specific special revenue fund, or they're set aside and made sure that they're tracked accordingly. The next item is a committed fund balance, and commitments take place at the county board level or the committee level, saying, as a group, we're going to collectively set aside specific activities. These are amounts that we're going to set aside for specific county purposes. So you have the discretion over how they get spent, but the commitment comes in at a formal action. So a resolution was passed in this case to set aside these balances. And in Polk County's case, starting with 2022, there was a lot more carryover from the department level. We have, okay, that specific department or that program, their original budget was 100,000 and maybe they only spent or incurred expenses of like 20,000 for the year. So the remaining 80 then was saying, okay, we know that we're going to spend it. We're just going to carry it over to the next year. We had the intention of spending the full 100 in year 1, but maybe due to supply chain issues, whatever it might be, those full funds weren't fully expended. So without them getting lost, then we're carrying them over now. So that's just a little bit of a change in the budgeting tactic, making those commitments. Similarly to the commitments are the assigned fund balance. So the assigned fund balance is, again, very similar. They're county designated functions. So you're going to say, we're going to take of these specific items, we're going to set them aside for the next year. The difference between committed and assigned is it's just a little less formal, where again, commitments require county board action and resolutions. Assignments is the policy of the county has designated the finance director and the finance county administrator the ability to, here are the activities, we're going to grant you the ability to assign these functions and the funds, and just let us know on the back end of like what the turnout of those activities were. So asset protection fund, employee retirement, and fleet vehicle activity is all incorporated in the assigned fund balance. That's what makes up that 1.4 million at the end of 2023. So after we boil all those down, we're left with unassigned fund balance. So your unassigned fund balance are your true reserves, unassigned from one year to the next, that can be meeting your future unexpected needs, your rainy day. One department went over its budget for a little bit. How are we going to cover that in the short term? That's where you live off of your reserves or your unassigned fund balance. So we take that unassigned fund balance and then we compare it to what does it actually take to run the county for a given year, and look at your total expenses. You know, that's your obligations of how we can operate our whole general fund. And we compare those two balances and compute that third highlighted row down there of the percentage of unassigned fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures. And that shows you, okay, if your reserves were there and you had to just live off your reserves, how far into the year could we really make it? And right now we're at about 86.3% of general fund expenditures sitting in unassigned fund balance, which overall is a fairly healthy, fund balance level to be at. The county has a minimum fund balance policy of about at least 20%. So you want to be at least 20% of the year. You could be living off of your unassigned fund balance. And if not, you would have to take some measures in your budgeting factor in order to build that up to a more sustainable level. From an outside agency standpoint, we're seeing counties usually between 50 to 60% at this point of unassigned fund balance. And you guys are obviously exceeding that as well. So overall, you're very fiscally healthy. And as a result of your previous policies, you can see, and again, 2020 and 2021 are a little obscure when it comes to this factor because of COVID funding and additional resources coming into the county from federal agencies. But your unassigned fund balance was at 100%, went up to 101%. And then during 2023 budget year, it was budgeted to have a drawdown of some of those resources in order to, again, kind of come more in line with still being very fiscally healthy and financially flexible, but then again, bringing those resources down. So in 2023, the other number to note is there was a net change in fund balance of a drawdown of about $1.9 million. And I think the budgeted drawdown was about 2.9 million. So you still actually exceeded your budget. We kind of planned for a budgetary reduction, and we still exceeded those expectations overall. So overall, very positive financial data for the general fund. And some of the benefits of still having a larger fund balance out there, it does again provide you great financial flexibility in terms of if you have large construction projects coming up, you can then finance them internally versus having to go out into the market and incur larger or higher interest rates right now. If you do need to go out into the market and borrow, your interest rates would then be more favorable because you're a higher credit rating essentially based on your unassigned fund balance. And then as well as it just completely eliminates any need for any short-term cash issues that might arise. Other governmental agencies do have a cash flow issue at times where they would need to go and short-term borrow in order just to make payroll and whatnot. So you're obviously in a very healthy situation. You can avoid all those pitfalls at that point. And then again, the most important thing is just projecting into the future. You can pay for a lot of capital items, one-time type expenditures directly out of your unassigned fund balance without any real need to continue to incur extraordinarily high interest rates over the years. So any questions on any of that that's kind of popped up while I was trying to describe in my best ability here for you? If not, I can kind of turn the page here to some of the other, as I mentioned earlier, all the various other funds of the county. These are what are known as special revenue funds. So special revenue funds is an activity or typically a program that has a specific revenue source that is restricted and must be used for these specific items. So I've kind of highlighted some of the larger items there. Of note here, again, Polk County's balance here, or Polk County policy, for Children and Families Fund and Health Services Fund, those top two items, those annually have a zero balance at the end of the year because it's county policy that at the end of the year, all those activities close to the general fund. So if there's any deficits or any residual balances left in there, those get closed back into the general fund through an interfund transfer. So all those operations ultimately end up in the general fund as far as the reserves. So in Children and Families, there was about a $759,000 transfer to the general fund. If there, in the past, there has been some deficits, but for the last 2 years at least, there's been some residual balances that have transferred over. So again, 259 in 2023, and that number was 759 in 2023, 751 in 2022. So again, very positive results in Children and Families. Health and Services Fund, there was another transfer back to the general fund. So there was income there, or some residual balance left of about 118,000 back to the general fund in 2023. That number is down from 2022. In 2022, that was 340,000. So it's down about 200,000 or 220,000 from 1 year, from 2022 into 2023. But again, overall, those are positive balances that are supporting your general fund. The other items here that you will see, I will call out the one special revenue project or special revenue fund here that is in the negative, and that's just the recycling center fund that has historically been negative over the last number of years. And again, that specific fund has limited state support coming into it. And then it should also then be supported by any user charges that are used to support those activities. So I know that that's obviously been discussed because we have Recycling Center Capital Projects Fund, which I'll go into here in a little bit. But that has been a topic of discussion as to how to treat that program. And directly here are your financial reasons why we should be continuing to analyze those activities because obviously they are negative. They need to be supported eventually. At this point, the only other funding source that's available to that fund would be taxpayer levy. All the other special revenue funds are operating in the positive with some various, some minor changes here or there, some specific drawdowns, some of the other ones that kind of change due to timing, such as like the snowmobile and ATV trails. Those grant funds come in and they span multiple years. So depending on if you had a good winter one year or a bad winter another year, sometimes you have to have additional maintenance on those trails and whatnot. So again, that's the activity that you're seeing there. And then the other one that I'll point out to you as well is the special revenue fund for the dams discussion. And I know in 2023, there's a significant drawdown, and I know that there's additional activity in 2024. So that's categorized as a special revenue fund, but a lot of that drawdown is because of increased activity for a lot more of that construction or the capital projects that are going on for the maintenance of those facilities. Any questions on your capital level, your special revenue funds before I dive into some of your other funds here? And changing the page over to page 3, the next type of fund we have here at the county is your debt service fund. The requirement there is this is the fund that keeps track of all of your principal and interest payments for the year. The residual balance here is going to be used to meet future debt service obligations, debt service payments in the future. If and when you would pay off all your debt, there would be zero left in your debt service fund. There might be a residual small balance that you would transfer back to the general fund or whatnot, but this money is already set aside and restricted to use for future debt service needs. In 2023, we made about $2.4 million in total principal and interest payments for the year. 2.2 million of that was principal and about 238,000 was interest. So overall, you're not carrying very much general obligation debt at all that is reported in this fund. So again, that just is another highlight of the financial health of Polk County. The next type of items that we have out there are the capital projects fund. These are capital projects funds are typically short-term funds that are used to set up for specific construction type projects. Here we didn't break them out. I think next year I'm going to propose that my next presentation to the full county board, I will break them out in total because there are 4 of them now that are in this, that make up this 2.2 million. You've got the General Government Center remodel project here that's in its final stages of, residual activity that needs to be paid out to various contractors. At the end of 2023, there was a slight deficit in that fund, which that'll be covered by a transfer in 2024's activity, be a transfer from the general fund to kind of clear that out and zero that whole fund out. That will close during 2024. Then there's also the grandstand project out at the county board, the county, just at the county fairgrounds, excuse me. And then there was a newer fund that was set up, the recycling center, capital projects fund that was out there. That was established with a $1.5 million transfer from the general fund over to the recycling construction project. And then lastly, there's a Parks and Rec capital projects fund meant for capital improvements of all the county parks and recs. So the reason that you've got $2.2 million there is primarily for the recycling center, and all of the activity for that specific project is being tracked separately within the financial statements, and will be reported as such going forward. Before I change gears on enterprise funds, any questions that we have at this point? Otherwise, we can, again, I want to take a pause there because now we're switching into our enterprise funds. Up until this point, we're talking governmental activities. So your enterprise funds, for anybody that's more customary to look at any business type or private business financial statements, these are going to be a lot more similar terminologies on this page versus if you would compare it to the first page of the general fund. Because once you get to your enterprise funds, you're actually going to have things like pension assets, capital assets are going to be on your books here, and all of your long-term liabilities are reflected in your balance sheet items here. And they're excluded on that front page. So when we're talking to specifically your sole business type activity at this point is Golden Age Manor, your nursing home. So Golden Age Manor's activity here has some, I'll refer to them as non-cash transactions or their accounting transactions to make sure that the full picture of the operations of operating a nursing home, everything is captured in these financial statements here. So again, some items there that are going to impact these numbers are the county's participation in the Wisconsin retirement system, the OPEB or the other post-employment benefits, long-term obligations, and also depreciation expense is reflected in these numbers. So if you jump right down to the very bottom of the page, you'll see that there's a change in net pension. That's your equity here for your Golden Age Manor. So the change or your net loss is what you're seeing here of that $147,000 does include those three items that I was just mentioning. And if we would remove those non-cash or those accounting transactions at this point, that would be $572,000 of activity that's impacting your Golden Age Manor's numbers. So it's a long way of saying, yes, if you look at it and analyze the ongoing, activity of Golden Age Manor, you would have to need to set aside additional resources or do some additional planning there for the long-range goals of Golden Age Manor. But from the year-to-year operational standpoint, Golden Age Manor is definitely covering its costs yet, which is a very positive highlight that we can, display here in your financial statements. Some of it kind of does get skewed again if you look back into 2021 and 2020's column. Again, COVID funding in 2021 is specifically the PPP loan was forgiven in 2021. So that's why that one really jumps off the page and said, okay, what did we do different in 2021? Can I make $2.2 million again? It would be very nice, but unfortunately that grant funding is no longer available. But in terms of operations at Golden Age Manor, it has been fairly similar from one year to the next. Continued struggles out there, obviously, in terms of qualified staffing. That's the staffing pool of the nursing pool or CNA pool is a challenge just in the healthcare field in total. You're going to face those continued challenges going forward, as well as also then just a change in the state and federal Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements and how those calculations are basically going to be impacting your budgets going forward. Full disclosure on that one, I'm very good at being able to analyze and decipher those numbers and hopefully communicate them to board members, but I definitely defer to others that are more into nursing home specific activity, such as Dana and the rest of your folks down at Golden Age Manor to help us out on that one as far as helping navigate how the state is going to be making those changes and just making sure that what we're reporting to them is correct. I can definitely be more of an asset on that one. If you get to the point as a county board to say you need to bring in some additional experts on that one, there are definitely colleagues of mine that can come in here and do more of a market analysis and whatnot, that they deal with county nursing homes, or just they deal with the nursing homes and the healthcare industry on a daily basis, where I personally focus on state and local government, bigger picture things for the whole county. So in that terms, is there any questions on nursing home or Golden Age Banner specific items? Very good. With that. Page number 4 here then is just listing out your internal service fund or your internal service funds. So this is a separate fund, again, just designated, and the primary purpose of this is to provide services to the general government in total. So the primary government, or the primary customer, so to speak, of the highway department is Polk County Highway. There are the ability then to provide services to other counties or other municipalities as well. But Polk County has their highway department set up as an internal service fund, very similar to the enterprise fund, where you have depreciation and all those other non-cash accounting type transactions are included in your highway department as well. Those impacts of WRS and depreciation there is about 1.1 to $1.2 million impact there. So again, if you jump all the way down to the bottom of the change in net position, that includes those. So you're showing a net loss of about 726,000. But again, that does include those two non-cash items that are impacting your items up above. Overall, very positive, activities of the highway department in total. And I know that's through the highway closing side of things, just working with the difficulties of reporting some of those numbers down to the state and then making them reconcile back to Financial Edge or the county's financial statement or financial system. That transaction that process has been a lot smoother than it has been in the past. So there's been great improvements in that area as well. But overall there isn't many, like a major highlight here just to fully there isn't anything that really jumps off the page for me there just to bring up to you. County Administrator Mo over here has got obviously great background in the highway department. So he could speak to your numbers way better than I could. So if there's anything that I could help interpret from Mo, maybe I'd be happy to do so. Your other two, or the other remaining internal service fund, is your health insurance fund. Again, that's the self-insurance fund there. The biggest item that we've been kind of transitioning or planning around here in terms of your health insurance fund is dating back to even beginning prior to 2020 here. The health insurance fund has been growing a fund balance or growing reserves at a higher rate than it was incurring claims against it, or those claims or those expenses. So we've been incurring a larger net position here over the last number of years. So the county had been working with an outside consultant to come in here and take a look at your rate design or your premium design, what's being charged to the employees as well as the county. That's all the activities going in here. And trying to figure out more of a happy medium there of maybe drawing down some of those resources out of the health insurance fund in order to then, if we lower premiums for the county for the various departments, then we can use those resources for other purposes. So there had been a planned designed drawdown of these resources because there's a pretty high net position here in 2021. It's about $8.1 million that was set aside just to meet health insurance claims of the county. And obviously then in 2022, it started coming down. And now in 2023, it's really, really coming down, and that trend is continuing. We've just experienced 2 back-to-back years of very high claims rates. So the good news is the consultants and all and everything like that, they've been doing their work. They've been doing the intended effect here. My understanding is it's been a little bit quicker than what they were initially thinking, because just in 2 years you went from 8.1 million and now you're down to 4.3 million. So there's no panic alarms going off right at the specific moment, but obviously you can't sustain another couple of high claims years and still have a healthy self-insurance fund. So it's definitely time to start looking at the premiums being charged or the benefits being offered, just to make sure that your self-insurance remains healthy and fiscally solvent. Because obviously you can run the numbers here, just the total number of change in net position here in the last 2 years has been 1.8 million and 1.9 million. You can't get very many more years out of $4 million sitting there before you're really going to have to make some hard decisions. So it's better to take a look at those now versus waiting until it's too late. Then really the last item that I have to kind of really go into and have a lot of discussion on is just the long-term obligations. So again, these are the long-term obligations of the whole county, are in these numbers. The general obligation notes, you've got just over $11 million of long-term debt that needs to be paid back. That's 3 separate issuances. One of them is going to go through 2027. Then you've got 2032 and 2037 with all of these different payments that are due through those dates. The reason that I bring up the number that you have outstanding as well as when those payments are actually going to be due seems a little counterintuitive. I know when I bring it up with some boards, but county government and the way that we have to deal with the state of Wisconsin's county levy limit worksheet and the amount that we deal with our actual levy. Typically, it's most government flat as possible, small decrease at that. In order to support our county and to have what we need for our total county levy that we're bringing in terms of total levy dollars that we're going to bring in, we have to follow that county levy limit worksheet formula. Part of that state statutes allows you to borrow up to 100% of all your GO debt principal and interest needs. So you could theoretically, whatever you have that's due for that next year, you could put that full amount on your levy limit worksheet, and it's completely acceptable to do so within the levy limit worksheet rules and statutes. Polk County isn't using 100% of it. You obviously don't necessarily need to use the full amount, but you are using a portion of that in order to basically help fill the levy gap, so to speak, and make sure that all your various programs and departments their obligations are being met. So in order to do that, though, in order to use that adjustment, you need to have general obligation debt. So you need to have a borrowing available to you on your books. We need to have some principal and interest just so we can kind of support and maintain our levy limit worksheet numbers. There have been nightmare situations I've seen with some other communities, typically they're smaller, where they've been relying using that statutory rule, and then all of a sudden that GO debt goes away. And now all of a sudden, just for maybe a year or two, the levy drops by 30% or a big number in some of these small extreme cases that it just drops very, very quickly. The general government or the general populace, taxpayers are very, very pleased with that, obviously. But then those organizations find themselves well, we actually really needed to live off of some of those dollars and use that levy to support our operations. So then they go out for a borrowing, and then their levy goes back up to even the sustainable, if not maybe slightly lower level that they had historically been planning. And then obviously now you've got a bunch of disgruntled taxpayers because the levy goes significantly down, and then it maybe rises maybe even 50% of what it was. Well, now you've just raised my taxes by so much, and in the grand scheme of things, taxes maybe even ultimately would have decreased. But again, from a budgetary standpoint, it's just something to keep in mind, paying attention to when your debt service obligations are coming due. And if they're going to start falling off, even having a smaller line of credit, so to speak, out there that you're just using in order then to make sure that the county, the levy limit worksheet is remaining as flat as possible and meeting the objectives of the board. Say it that way. Because ultimately you do have a statutory limit of how much GO debt that you can issue. At the county level, it's usually completely not sustainable that you're ever going to get to 100% of that level. Because it's just a percentage of equalized value of the whole county equalized value. You're using 2.8% of that limit, which is obviously extremely low. You're never going to get to even 50% or even 60% of that number would be extremely highly leveraged. And then you would have, definitely need to be utilizing that levy limit worksheet exemption in order just to meet your principal and interest payments. So state of Wisconsin does a great job of making sure that municipalities aren't going to be over leveraged and ultimately wouldn't ever need to be paying higher interest than some of the other services that you'd be offering to your residents. So you do have obligation debt limit available, obviously. And again, the most powerful tool that I could recommend for Polk County would be to utilizing that just to smooth out your levy limit obligation or your levy limit going forward and just making sure it's fairly stable. Other than that, that basically concludes my comments for you. Again, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those or address those. The remaining pages in your handout there, I'm more of looking at things in a table format over the years, but pages 5 and pages 6 just give us a representation of where your revenues are coming from versus what the expenditures going out the door are. So clearly on page 5, you can see that the highest level of revenue, the greatest revenue that's coming into the county is through taxes. The next intergovernmental, that just means federal and state grants programs are coming in. And then a lot of people like just to take a look at, well, maybe if we just raise fees, we can raise our fees out of any budgetary issues. You can see that, that's probably the next bucket out there, but it pales into comparison as to just the total revenues that are coming in the door. So typically it's not feasible in the governmental realm to raise fees high enough to, 100% user fee supported. There's always additional costs that come in there that usually you can't really balance that out. Then on page 6, you can see the difference of the numbers that you're seeing there are just the various functions of what those programs are, where the county is basically spending its money. So you can see that the general government or just general obligations, that's fairly high from year to year. And then the next section down is health and human services, down in children and family and the health services fund. That's where your primarily greatest expenditures are coming in with. Followed closely by public safety, and in certain years, highway or transportation expenditures are out there too. There's some attachments there too. The rest of it is just what's termed as the governance letter. Again, that's more of a formal wording of kind of me highlighting what I was at the start of this presentation of those items, just to be aware of for the material weaknesses of the county and just certain things that you should be paying attention to, and various accounting policies and accounting estimates that are included in your financial statement. So that's all I have for you today. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded or didn't put too many of you to sleep with too many facts and figures. I try to do my best there because I know that it's a different set of skill set at times to navigate around those. Any questions that I can answer for folks? Good. Thank you.
Right, are we ready for another presentation?
Take a break.
Do we have a break?
A break? All right,
Yeah.
let's take, what, 10?
Sure.
10-minute break.
Perfect. Need a gavel.
It is.
Russ, you need a gavel.
Then the fee schedule.
Yes.
So this is the preamble for the real work, which is next month. But what we have today for you are the fee schedules for departments that essentially report up to general government. And the good news is it's going to be pretty short unless there's lots of questions. And I don't really anticipate many or any because we haven't really done much with fees this year. The departments that come up to your committee. So just passing these out. And by the way, these are next month, we will get all of the fees from all the departments and divisions. And each of the committees that has their own departments reporting up is doing what we're doing today. So Health and Human Services is looking at departments that report up to it and the fee structures associated with those departments. What you see in front of you are CJCC on the first page, no change in fees. On the next page, Corporation Council, no change in fees. And the treasurer unfortunately couldn't be here to discuss the one fee change that we have in front of you. I'll do my best. But if you look at the last page, treasurer fees, tax deed fees, she's recommending an increase of $35 from 165 to 200. And she mentioned to me that it's been at least 7 years since she's looked at this fee. Her costs have gone up. And she's recommending that to cover her costs, she needs to be at 200 instead of 165 for the 2025 budget year. That's what I've got for you. And so what we're looking for is just an affirmation from you saying, these sound good to you. And next month, when we compile the whole thing, you can make a formal decision on passing fees onto the board. Follow. Any concerns?
No.
Thank you.
Nice job, Don.
All right, how about our personnel policy?
Shabana's fees, you forgot hers.
Oh,
I did have an increase as well.
I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Would you like to discuss? I'm sorry, Russ, Chair, Clerk. You have one you wanted to
I
discuss?
just have an increase from $10.50 to $12 for passport photos. I'm not even sure the last time that this was upped, but I did compare to other places. The only other place like around here that does it is shipping and handling, which is also at $12, I believe. If you go to something like Walgreens, I believe it's 17, and up in Douglas County, they do them in their $4 store. So below, but we're going from $10.50 to $12. It was also a request from the treasurer to go to an even number, so they don't have to supply quarters anymore, as we're the only department that needs them. So that is kind of another reason behind the increase.
All right, we got it. How about the personnel policy? Who's leading that discussion?
Yeah, I can, last month you were handed out the personnel policy for review and stuff. Looking right now to see if you have any comments, suggestions, before moving it on to the board.
Buddy? We're good. Do we need action? You want a motion to move it to the board? What do you want?
That'd be nice. Appropriate.
I move that we forward the changes to the board. Changes the personnel policy.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Carries. We got a resolution 3124. Wanna get us in that?
Sure, I can take that.
So resolution 3124 is, after talking, through personnel policy and the handbook, the remote work or the work from home, was implemented during the COVID-19 time period. And it's been carried over since then. I feel that we've, passed those circumstances. And I would like to see the staff that do work from home or work remote, transition back to the office. To increase productivity, collaboration, development, within the county. And so that's what this resolution is for.
Do we have any instances that examples of some kind or
I mean,
is that
personally,
happening now that would be beneficial to make these changes? Well, not changes, but to bring it back.
yeah, personally, I've had circumstances where staff have been unable to be reached during business hours. That would have been able to be reached if they were in the office. Several occurrences personally. And then I have other business owners that have had difficulty reaching staff also. That are looking to,
Is this something that we have to do through resolution or is it something that we can do with bringing it to the attention of administration? And maybe there's some particular reason. I don't understand it.
I think it's just a tool that we can implement as a board to give direction to the administrator that it can be just ended. And then if there's a circumstance that comes up, that can still be reviewed by the administrator.
Since, just from my seat in the house, since it's hit the agenda, I've reached out to several groups of people to get input, and they definitely feel that services have been impacted by the lack of people in house.
You know,
Yep. And the comment has come out from time to time that, well, they're working remotely today, they're not available. You know, we're of the people, by the people, for the people. Services need to be adhered to. And obviously you never can provide 100%, but it's not an uncommon practice today, especially in the business world, to be bringing these people back. Because the inefficiencies that come with it
I understand
continue to
what you're
mount.
saying. I just haven't had the experience. But, and if it was more beneficial for them to work at home, I don't know. What does the administration think of this?
Well, remote work started well before COVID. Remote work at Polk County started back in 2018 as a test pilot to see if there was efficiencies to do with programming. A resolution like this really puts a straitjacket on operations and flexibility of departments to do that. Does it eliminate the potential of someone coming in and not being able to get a hold of staff with this resolution? No. Someone could be sick, someone could be doing something, someone could be in a meeting, they won't get a hold of staff. For the board to get this far down in the weeds, we've taken great strides in pulling back COVID work from home scenarios. Environmental Services has policy now in department policy where they have to fill out a form if they want to request remote work and have to have a reason for it and a time limit on it and why they have to do it. CSD is the same way. They have strict guidelines on their remote work. They can't have it for childcare. They can't do it for certain items. Losing the flexibility and putting in a resolution or law that we have to remain on working hours eliminates the flexibility of staff and management to manage the departments. Clearly, we'd be unable to flex time if a resident or a client could not make an 8:30 timeframe and needed early stage or an earlier time to meet. This would eliminate staff being able to flex to come in early to do that because it's not normal working hours. Many cases where I'll say people in different offices, child welfare caseworkers, maybe, am I thinking of one? Child support specialists can get more filing done in that at home with less distractions in the office. They're People are under the assumption that people are at home, take the time to do their laundry or something, would be no different than someone walking out of their office and going down and shooting the breeze in front of the vending machine, talking about a Snickers because they're away from their computer for 20 minutes. It very limits the ability. So that's why we've taken a hard look at that. Working remotely is not an entitlement that we share, like that everyone gets a rotation during the week of doing that. It's very important of that. And of my feeling of this is that this resolution is not where the board needs to be, down in the weeds of this thing. And passing a resolution like this would just show Polk County administration and managers that the board has no confidence in their managers, that they can manage their people on there with that. So it really hamstrings us that way.
You know, I agree with almost everything you said, Mo, other than the fact that it's been brought up on several occasions, what the policy, what the plan, and what the strategy is, and it all gets pushed in the weeds also. It hasn't been fed back to the board or to the constituents as to how that's supposed to work. So some of these things come out when those things get avoided. And they're avoided because they're very, very sensitive.
Right.
They're sensitive to employees, they're sensitive to constituents, they're sensitive to everybody. So I think the key to it is to prevent stuff like this is full transparency. And we have not seen that.
We can get you those programs on there. And one of the things I would ask, if someone has a issue or a problem getting a hold of staff, let us know. You know, and that's the key. Whether it's specifically, if you have to reach an employee that's very specific, and I'll just use an example of the surveyor, that he might have the sole answer to that question. And someone comes in to talk with him, well, he might be in the field versus emailing them ahead of time or an appointment and stuff like that. Other times, the response that is inappropriate when someone comes in and saying they're unavailable, they're remote. That's the inappropriate response. The appropriate response is, he's remote, but in a Zoom meeting at this time, I can see he's on another call. We can get a hold of him this way. That's the appropriate response, and that's the education that staff needs to do.
Well, and I think as you look at those individuals that are required to be in the field, whether they're zoning or surveyors, whatever they are, in order to serve the public properly, they have to understand that Tuesdays and Thursdays are their field days. So that people in the office can respond to a customer coming in saying, look, if you need to speak with them, make an appointment for a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Tuesday and Thursdays are traditionally as field days. Obviously, you're still gonna have the one off occasionally.
Yes.
But that communication has not come through very clearly to the general public.
And we can follow up on that on the website to ensure those days and where they're going.
Well, and that's not a specific example. That's just an example.
Right.
I think it's just being more accountable to our constituents.
Mr. Chair.
If people get more work done when they're working remote, that's the most efficient use of a taxpayer dollar.
Could you?
This is incredible. Because I'm leaving, I feel like I can speak freely. I believe that this is a slap in the face to management. This is saying we don't trust management. I can tell you environmental services has addressed your concern about what happened in that department.
I'm not saying it's environmental services.
Yeah, Keith?
Yeah, you know, when I read this initially, I didn't think this was really too big of a deal because the last section there, be it further resolved, the county administrator will review, approve, or deny requests from human service director. And each request that will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis in accordance with applicable laws and company policies. Isn't that what's being done now? I mean, I'm sure you're looking at them case by case.
I do not, the managers look at those case by
Oh, but
case.
this
Run their department.
this directs it to the administrator to look at it case by case.
Correct. Right now, currently, managers do look at that each case. Of
I think
that.
it's inconsistent of how it's used. Some people use it for if they have a sick kid, they'll stay home. Some people use it because there's a snowstorm and they'll come in and use it. I've had it where they've been on a family vacation in Wisconsin Dells. And
Working remotely.
you know, like, I think we need to reel it all in and move forward.
If you're on vacation, you're on vacation. Those
They were
cases,
not on vacation.
They were not on vacation, or were they at a conference?
I was told that they were working from home, and I asked the person to call them because they should be working, and they answered the phone and said, I'm in Wisconsin Dells. I'll call you back on Monday.
Let's see, those are the incidents that we need to follow up on.
Correct.
You know, in childcare. Is
I'm
very
just one
specific,
person.
and certain departments are very specific.
I think childcare, Mo, is an absolute good excuse why they have to at times, because they have to be there when the families can be there.
Right, when the
But
family,
there are other services that the public depends on that should be able to depend on people being available to answer questions.
it's the coverage.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's the key.
Exactly.
And that's the key for coverage that the managers have to disseminate for each one of these cases.
Well, just, looking at the overall scope or the feeling or the intent of this, it kind of makes me think that we're saying that there's a lot of people that are not working in the office and let's get them back in here. I don't know if that's the case or not. How many people? Yes, sir.
Environmental Services Division, we have 2 contracts right now with 3 months where I have 2 people that have 1 day a week where they are allowed to work from home on a project basis. I do know there was one incident in my division, I had just started and before we had a time to really look at that remote work strategy. But in our division anyway, it's handled differently now. So, and if any supervisor ever wants to know those contracts or who has those, I take a look at them quarterly and approve or disapprove. And right now there were maybe 4 or 5. Now that's reduced down to 2 and potentially down to even just 1 at this time. So.
Oh, I think it would be very helpful for the board to understand in light of what this has brought up.
Right.
For the board to understand what the policy is and how it's set up and why.
Right. And
Because it has been very, very taboo. It's been a white elephant in the corner for quite some time.
this time, the Environmental Services Division, it's our own strategy, that works for us because every division is so different in their services to the public. We are extremely public facing, so we needed to address that. That's one of the first things we did with the management group or with my team when I came here.
And for community services, it is different within the departments depending on the work they do. Some teams allow 4 days remote, some only 2 days. It's really about what meets the needs, because a lot of our work services, I would say half of our staff are field-based staff, so they're already not necessarily based out of the office. Those are reviewed, we review them yearly, and there's a form that they fill out. But if there are issues with a person working remote, we have brought staff back on site to help bring that quality of work back up.
I'd be happy to share the strategy that we have for my team at any, I'd be happy to share that.
I'm not saying it's a specific department.
Right, I know.
It's a
Yeah.
countywide issue.
Just addressing the needs that I saw when I came.
Well, it's extremely sensitive to people too.
Do we want to put this on the administrator to look at every individual request?
Push it to the county board for further discussion.
I don't think that would be a discussion without information. I'm still unaware of it being a problem. I still don't, I just don't, I don't want to overkill. If we have got a problem, I think we should address it. However, how we address it is pretty sensitive in management. We hire them to, if we haven't got a good manager, I think we exchange managers or get a different one. But
Well, I think the other thing to add to that, Jay, is the success of anybody working remotely is how it's managed. It doesn't matter what business it's in, because there are a lot of businesses that use a lot of people working remote.
oh, I know.
But it's the management of that's very, very difficult. And it's very hard for us sitting on the outside to understand how it's being managed if we don't know the parameters. We just hear the feedback.
I don't know.
And some of it is due to communication. Well, you're absolutely right. When someone in an office says, well, he's not available, he's working remotely today. That sends somebody that's trying to make a living that needs something information, sends them through the roof.
Mhm.
So the communication part of that is as big as any.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just
We could put together for next agenda, you know, just an overview of what each division is doing to address remote work.
That would be,
The flexibility is key for efficiencies for our taxpayers.
in my mind, that would be important to know that information.
So, part of the communication thing too that we're talking about is if there is an issue and we don't know about it as managers, it's hard for us to correct it.
No question.
People have to let us know that, hey, I tried to get a hold of whoever and I couldn't. This was the answer I got. We need to know that to be able to correct it.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that communication is probably just as important.
That's generally the approach I've taken in the last 20 years and got good results.
I've had the same thing with that not knowing. I've had people call up and say, everyone in the world is calling me complaining about X, Y, Z. And I check at the department level, I check at staff level, I check and not received one complaint on any of it. And so it's generalized as it goes up the ladder, so.
So would you like to let this carry over to next month? Let them put a report together, each department head, on who's working remote and what their plan is? Or are you gonna move it to the board right now? Wanna let it ride a month? Put it on the agenda for
Well,
next
I don't think I
month?
can just move it to the board. I'd have to go through the approval.
What's that?
I can't just move this to the board. It would have to go through the approval.
Well, that's
That's
our
what we do
job.
right here.
Right.
That's why
It's just, do you want a full report from all the department heads prior to moving this county board? Put it on our agenda for next month
Sure.
and then ask for a report.
I think that's reasonable.
and a possible remedy of some of the. If we brought
Like,
this,
how are we
if we
tracking?
brought this to the county board in an open session and general conversation,
Start a
we would
fight.
we would have to bring out specific incidences in order to come up with a logical,
So then
resolution.
let's get that. Let's get the facts.
Get them.
And
We've got to have.
How do we track it?
Well, I think the real part of that is if we get a report back as to how each department is handling it, if we can find abuses to that, that would require us to make adjustments to that, that becomes very easy. But if we are truly in the dark about what's being done and how it's being done, I think it's to shine that light upon what it is. It allows us to make better decisions based on what our personal feeling is or what we're hearing from a constituent, not knowing all the facts. Because I can be honest with you, I don't know all the facts in it either. If you listen strictly to what you hear on the street, it's like, get this going. You got to get this stopped. That's your job. I hear that crap. I've heard it since I brought this up. However, without knowing the facts, I don't know that we can make a good recommendation or push something through that would go the right direction. If we get all the information back and it still doesn't feel right, I think bringing something forward, whether we amend it or whatever, makes way better sense than to hammer it through today without knowing all the facts. I think we need to go through a bit of a fact-finding mission here, which is, I think, in all fairness, has been a little slow coming, but this will certainly bring it to a head and allow us to get to that information.
Well, and even pushing this forward doesn't get us the information. All it does is make Mo look at every,
And that's what we pay them for.
Ultimately,
let's find out where we're at with this.
see if it's a
first.
problem, a bigger problem than.
And we don't even know how many today, we don't know how many it impacts. How many people individually are involved in it.
all right, so can we make that request then of the administrator to get us the information next meeting?
And identify problem. Possible. If there is one. or if it just appears to be a problem and it isn't.
The only county in 72 counties, and the only other time that happened, we lost out of millions of dollars from the opioid crisis. You will have staff leave. The longer this stays out there as a potential, the anxiety amongst staff is going to increase, and they will go to other neighboring counties, maybe even before next month, because there are openings.
All right, we're putting it on the agenda for next month. Gather us up the information you're. All right. Update regarding the housing program.
Well, I've got some good news. Good news. The board passed a resolution to allocate $200,000 to support housing in the public interest. And that's a broad category. It could include senior housing, workforce housing. You heard Terry earlier talking about the importance of that, low income housing. We're just interested in building the housing base. Another stipulation the board put on this is it should maintain or increase the tax base. So that sort of puts us in a position of working with private developers, which we think is a great idea. The money itself would be delivered to tribes or municipalities working with a private developer on a housing project. So that's sort of how the program is designed to work. I'm going to say it was 2 months ago, we got an application from a municipality. I can now say that it's the city of Amory, with a private developer to build. It's a large project that includes 7 townhomes, sort of east of the river, and Supervisor Ruck, Council Malone, Administrator and I met last week to approve or to review, and we approved that application for $70,000 in a zero interest loan to the city of Amory that they would use to support that development. So we think that's great news. That leaves $130,000 left. The way the program works is it's $10,000 per unit up to a total of 7. We presented this information in Health and Human Services yesterday, and the question was asked whether, because this is a big multi-stage project, whether the city of Amory might come back and ask at a later date for more money. And it was, so there was a good discussion in HHS about that. The intent of the program was to spread the money around. So this may be the sort of thing that we look at a little more, we really look at the language in the resolution. Ideally, we'd have other communities come forward, and I think Terry Howard presented some excellent information about other developments in other municipalities. Maybe we start working with those to try to get some more of this money allocated. This is sort of balance sheet neutral. It's a loan program, so the minute we put it out there to municipality, it becomes a receivable for us. So we're not really spending the money, we're just parking it someplace else and we get it back later. That's what I've got. Anything else?
Any questions, comments? Are you up for the next one then? The departmental annual reports?
I believe I am. Well, it's a little bit like the fee schedule. It's your first pass at some information that doesn't really get sort of made official until the November budget. You'll see the first draft of the budget will have these in updated form, but this is the first draft of the annual reports for the departments that come up through general government. So my job today is just to distribute this to you, ask you to review it, and we have really between now and the first publication of the budget book to answer any of your questions about it. So this is the information that appears in at least for the last 3 years since I've been involved, that appears in the back of the budget book. It's a 2-page summary for each department. It includes some key performance indicators, description of the department, who manages it, and then some financial information in brief. This is just your first cut at it. Department heads are listed on each of the reports. They can certainly answer most, if not all, of your questions, and anything that can't get answered by a department head, feel free to ask of myself. So that's what we've got for annual reports today.
How about the administrator's update?
Mr. Chair, I don't really have a lot to update, just that we're working on the budget. Numbers are coming in finally on, where we strategize with, COLA, merit, health savings, benefits, all that stuff is coming together now. Project, looking at all our tools in the toolbox on making that happen with our capital projects, the bonding. Those rates are still looking very good right now to keep us going through, and how that works, for the long term, getting things done. So, I think we're gonna have a really solid budget. The county's strong right now. I'll have an updated county board on condition of the county. We're doing well that way. We have some levers we can pull with other funds that I will talk about at county board, but things are looking good. The bonding coming around, projects, our long-term planning, and where we stand with our CIPs are looking great, so. That's all I got.
All right. Anything we need to do on our plan?
Make a motion to adjourn.
It gets a second.
Second.
Favor?
All right.
We'll stand adjourned at 11.
14.
And on the meeting upstairs, Mo?